Good evening, this is Brass Tacks. I'm Zaka Jacob. At least 14 opposition parties had come together, forming a coalition of sorts, if you will, to try and seek justice from the Supreme Court against what they alleged was the weaponization of probing agencies, the CBI, ED, etc. However, today the Supreme Court declined to hear the petition, saying that it cannot issue general directions and can only intervene in individual cases. The bench, led by the CJI, Chandrachud, also stated that political leaders cannot claim a higher immunity than ordinary citizens, and hence no special set of guidelines can be issued. So the question is, has this attempt by the opposition to paint this narrative that ED, CBI, etc. are being used for political vendetta and as a political witch hunt against largely opposition leaders and opposition parties, has that backfired now with what the court has said and done? But first, the story.
गठबंधन बाद में बनेंगे, लेकिन कम से कम ये संवैधानिक और कानूनी गठबंधन अभी बन जाना चाहिए कि सामूहिक रूप से इस देश की जो भी प्रमुख 15 पार्टियां हैं वो एक साथ मिलकर उच्चतम न्यायालय में याचिका करेंगी कि अगर आप बराबरी का उपयोग या जो बराबरी का व्यवहार नहीं करते हैं इस एजेंसीज के विषय में, तो वो हमारे संवैधानिक मूल ढांचे का उल्लंघन है.
A massive blow to opposition's judicial coalition. 14 political parties face supreme rejection as the apex court refused to entertain a plea against the arbitrary use of probe agencies. It was a 3-judge bench headed by Chief Justice of India, D.Y. Chandrachud, with Justices P.S. Narasimha and J.B. Pardiwala. Opposition coalition argued that there is a 600% increase in CBI and ED cases, out of which 95% are against the opposition. To which the bench reverted that the conviction rate is generally dismal and a political leader is basically a citizen, so they don't claim any higher identity to seek guidelines from the court. And if at all there is a chilling effect on the opposition, then the answer lies in the political space and not in courts. The Supreme Court concluded by asking the opposition parties to file their pleas individually. Sensing the court's disinclination, Senior Advocate Singhvi sought permission to withdraw the petition. With no further solid action plan for the future, the question arises, has opposition's attempt at unity backfired? Bureau Report, CNN News 18.
All right, we'll try and get the view from both sides of the aisle, political as well as legal, where we'll be joined by two very, very prominent legal as well as political luminaries. I want to go first to Mahesh Jethmalani. He's a Rajya Sabha Member of Parliament, Senior Advocate with the Supreme Court. Thank you very much, Mahesh Jethmalani, for speaking with us. So what the court essentially said today is we can't have a separate standard for politicians as a class, but if in individual cases they feel that there is vendetta or there is some kind of witch hunt, they are free to approach the court. How can the government claim that this is some kind of a political victory?
Well, because the normal course was that if you have a case in which you make all these allegations, you go to the concerned court, whether it's a magistrate or a sessions court or a special court, and then you have your appellate structure of the High Court and the Supreme Court. And all these avenues have been exhausted by the many politicians whom Dr. Singhvi was representing today in court. And they failed. So this was the last desperate attempt, right? And this attempt was that there is en masse discrimination and bias on the part of the investigating agencies. It's the cases are politically motivated, right? And what was not said but was implied was that if they are politically motivated, they are false. Now, the falsity part has already been tested by the individual courts concerned. They've gone into the facts of the case and they've either rejected bail because it's not a good case for bail, or they've said there's a prima facie case because the evidence so warrants, right? Now, the whole case was totally, if I may say so, Zaka, an exercise in misadventure, completely misconceived, and, if I may add, slightly audacious.
But tell me this, Mahesh. I mean, the numbers at the end of the day are still what the numbers are. And the figures that were cited by Dr. Singhvi in court today, 125 cases that the ED is probing against people of political, affiliation, if you will. of which the figures he has cited is that 95% of these cases are against opposition leaders, only 5% against those from the BJP. That is not going away.
All right. That's not going away, Zaka, but there are two inferences, right? The two inferences to be made from that figure which you just quoted were, A, right, that there is, the cases are malafide, right, and false, but those are tested. So that hypothesis goes. The alternative interpretation is that the current opposition are steeped in corruption, and every effort they've made to fight their cases, whether on the question of bail, the final trials haven't started yet, so they're still presumed to be innocent. But at least there's no case for bail, there's no case for quashing, and they have to face trial. Now that's where this whole exercise in the Supreme Court comes in. They know they're going to face trial. In a large number of these cases, charge sheets or complaints have already been filed. So what they're trying to do, right, is to avoid trials. They're trying to cast some kind of shadow on the investigating agencies, which the Prime Minister cautioned against at that CBI convention. He told them, do not be deterred by these allegations. These are powerful accused persons. They will resort to these side winds, these totally extraneous arguments. They will deviate from the facts and truth of the case. Those are already dealt with. They've had their day in several courts and appellate courts, and they've lost. They can't stomach that. So the only way now was this last-ditch attempt to club all these cases and say there is en masse discrimination and it's politically motivated.
So tell me,
that's been rebuffed.
Yeah, one thing that the opposition continuously says is that the cases against former opposition leaders who have joined the BJP, and they cite the examples of Himanta Biswa or Shubhendu Adhikari, Mukul Roy, etc., who were opposition leaders in opposition parties, joined the BJP, and somehow after joining the BJP, the cases against them are either in cold storage or there's a go slow by the agencies against them. This whole detergent and washing machine argument, I'm sure you must have heard that as well. What do you say to that?
All right. Now, that's a more plausible argument. I'll say that. But the fact is that the people who have joined the parties, nevertheless, the investigations continued against them, right? Some of them have turned witnesses for the prosecution, right, to get bigger fish. A. B, if you still feel, if the opposition still feels, right, and I do not know why they just, this is only, repeatedly stating the same thing in the media. If you feel that there's any person who has been a genuine case of, as you put it, dry cleaning through a BJP laundry, right, please go to the court. Go to the court and tell, you must have some facts on the basis of which you say so. Your mere saying so doesn't get you anywhere, right? Put your money where your mouth is. Go to the court and say, this man should not have been let off as he has been by the investigating agencies. He is the beneficiary of favors by the investigating agency concerned, right?
Okay.
And then that's your remedy. There's no point keeping on repeating it ad nauseum to create some kind of a climate without really going to the forum that's actually going to get you justice.
Okay, Mahesh Jethmalani, we'll leave it at that. We'll see how this is responded to, both legally and politically. Of course, legally, the petition was withdrawn by the council, Dr. Singhvi. Politically, how the opposition sort of takes it to the people. And ultimately, I think the court also said something very interesting, which I thought was very, very prescient. And I'll ask Majid Memon this. The question that the court, or at least the observation that the court said was, if this is in the political domain, then fight it politically. And I think that's an absolutely, kosher argument that if you are not able to defeat the BJP politically, then settle that politically. That has to be settled in the court of the people, not in the courts of law. That's what the Supreme Court opined today.
See, there are a couple of clarifications which are very necessary for your viewers and for all of us to understand. Number one is that there were certain oral exchanges of words from the bench and the bar when this matter was taken up before Supreme Court for hearing. But those things are not part of any judicial orders. And in fact, there is no order passed at all, save and except one worded that allowed to withdraw, dismissed, withdrawn. Therefore, you see, any talk between the two sides will have no impact, in fact, except, of course, for the journalistic consumption or for political consumption. But they have no legal recognition at all, number one. Now, number two, I must tell you that the opposition approached Supreme Court, there was some kind of miscommunication, if I would call it that way, that the opposition's approach before the Supreme Court was not with a view that the opposition, political opposition leaders consider themselves above common man's rights. It is not that way. You see, opposition leaders have never suggested, even impliedly or indirectly, that they should be treated differently. Because that is what precisely Justice Chandrachud, it seems, must have also commented orally. That is what we have heard. But let me tell you that court is right in saying this. As an officer of the court, I must tell your viewers that the court is right in saying that there can't be a general accusation. There has to be a case specific that you come out with. Then we will definitely examine that and then give our views. And if we feel that, well, there is discrimination or injustice or there is any breach of law or excessive use or abuse of power, we would come forward. That is what Supreme Court means.
No,
and I don't quarrel with that at all.
Yeah,
that's
Mr.
absolutely right.
The basic premise of this petition that was moved, and we've heard this argument from numerous opposition leaders, is that the agencies are being used disproportionately against opposition leaders. Today, the court, by saying that that premise is wrong or not accepting the petition, thereby the petitioner being forced to withdraw that petition, the court is essentially saying that that whole premise itself is wrong.
No, let me clarify this point also. Now, see, the case of the opposition is the abuse of powers by the central agency at the behest of people in power, namely BJP. Now, that is the fundamental premise, first premise in the logical syllogism. Now, this fact that there is hue and cry that the CBI, and we are not talking about favoring BJP or victimizing opposition, we are talking of the general functioning of BJP and CBI throughout the country. Even non-political people are also coming within its fold. Now, what I am trying to convey is that there has been cry throughout for the past some years, some months, that BJP, that CBI and ED are doing excessive work, they are abusing their power, or rather they are functioning at the behest of some political push. Now, this is not what the opposition leaders are saying. Mind you, this is something very important which I am telling you. This is what the Honorable Chief Justice of India, Justice Ramana, had said on the 75th anniversary Amrita lecture which he delivered in Delhi about last year, in which he has said, these are his words, that the agencies, CBI and ED, central agencies are found to be abusing, there is a lot of grievance, and therefore there is a need to have a monitoring committee to examine whether there is abuse or whether there is discrimination or whether there is selective attack. Now, this is what is the observation of the Honorable Chief Justice of India of that time.
No, but Mr.
Menon, today
the current Chief Justice has rejected that notion, or at least rejected the premise of that notion, that agencies are being selectively used to target only persons of a certain political affiliation. And if you're from the BJP's political affiliation, then you're not being targeted. That premise has been rejected by the court.
Now listen, what you are telling me about Justice Chandrachud is also not a judicial order. Again,
sure,
it is not a judicial order. It's just an oral exchange of free thought. And the one Chief Justice differs from another Chief Justice. You see, if today's Chief Justice makes an oral comment like this, that, well, there is no selective this thing, that is his personal view. That is not a judicial order. Again, I am saying so. Let Justice Chief Chandrachud say this from the bench as a judicial order.
No, I am coming back to the fundamental point. So when the court says that politicians or the political class cannot have a different set of rules, I mean, you can't expect the court to say that there should be tighter scrutiny of cases that are political in nature, or whether accused persons are political,
with respect,
as opposed to accused persons not being politicians. You can't have that. The law is the same.
With respect, law is the same. With respect, with highest and utmost respect to the Honorable Chief Justice of India, who is said to have stated like this as you are telling me. I have not heard him saying so. But I take it that Chief Justice said what you have told me now. With respect, I disagree with him for simple reason that there is a separate provision for the offences against the public servants like MPs and MLAs. There are different courts meant for them, for expediting their matters. Their matters be taken earlier because they are considered as slightly different. Although the set of law applies with the same fury, whether to a common man, to a politician. That is one side of it.
Okay.
But at the same time, if you want to distinguish, there is a point of distinction that the MPs and MLAs have got different courts which are taking the matters faster, quicker, and for certain special
All right.
judges are appointed. So how can you say that the common? These are the factual
Anyway,
positions.
we'll see how this story plays out. Like I said, I think at least the legal avenue here seems to have been, at least in this form, seems to have been exhausted with the petitioner now withdrawing the cases. But in the court of public opinion, whether or not this will have resonance in the run-up to 2024, we'll wait and see. Thank you very much to Majid Memon and earlier to Mahesh Jetmalani as well. Let's now move on to the other story that we're